Hey, how are you doing? Dr. B here for world religions, or at least the top 5 that we are studying this time in this semester. I want to give you a compliment. Everybody is doing really, really good. I use everybody loosely. Everybody is doing really good in the reflections and the discussion requirements. Thank you for that. That's exciting. If you haven't done those posts, you need to post them now. Let your other fellow students know what your reflection is on a particular video lesson or a particular video tutorial, what I call the other voices in the community. We're looking at these religions. And so you looked at summaries of the 5 major religions we're discussing this semester, but now we're turning our attention, maybe alphabetical order, to Buddhism. It's one of the more interesting religions in the world. And so let's look at some quick facts about Buddhism. It's also known in the Indian language as Dharma Vinaya, and that means in Hindu, doctrines and disciplines. And also you may hear somebody use the term Buddha Dharma. And by the way, we'll look at some definitions in a few minutes about Dharma and what they're trying to say to us on that. So there's a bunch of original writings back 2,600 years ago in the 5th or the 6th century, depending upon when you think that the Buddha was born and lived out his life. So Buddhism is a son or daughter of Hinduism, and we'll discuss that a little more when we get to Hinduism. But Buddhism is a birth religion out of Hinduism. It's the 4th largest world religion in terms of adherents or believers. You'll hear a name called Siddhartha Gautama. That is the original Buddha. He lived somewhere between 566 BC and 410 BC. It's very debatable, and both Hindus and Buddhists don't really pay much attention to time because they believe in reincarnation and the cycle of life and all of that. And so time doesn't really mean a lot to these adherents. So Gautama, Siddhartha Gautama, was a prince in the Indian structure of deity and royalty, and he was very sheltered by his father. He wasn't allowed to go out into the world to experience all those things, and his philosophy was birthed out of the fact that he sneaked out of the palace to go out and look, and he began to observe things he knew nothing about. Like people age, they get old. People get sick. People die. And then in his 4th day out looking around in his society, he found an ascetic or a religious leader who fasted and didn't eat, that caused him great suffering. And Buddha Gautama began to write his philosophy, began to speak to followers of Buddha. It's also a religion which doesn't know when your life will end, because depending upon your behavior, dharma, depending upon how nice of a person and how good of a person you are, depends on what you will be in your next life. And of course, if you do badly or you're an evil person, you might in your next life become a frog. Perhaps not a frog or a raccoon or some other beast of the field. And that's why you see in India and other countries who are adherent to Buddhism and Hinduism, you will see cows running through the marketplace and all of that. Those are Brahma cows and bulls, and they let them do that because it might be their great uncle Fred or their aunt Martha, or of course an Indian name. So what I want to do now is to go through some vocabulary quickly for you that we're all going to really need to know about to be able to be fluent in Buddhism language. First of all, it is the term Bodhi, B-O-D-H-I. Its name comes from the Bodhi tree. That's the tree that Gautama Buddha sat under, that got all this enlightenment and understanding of life. And so Bodhi or Bodhi is enlightenment and achieving the status of deity. Buddha literally means one who is awake, one who recognizes his surroundings. The Buddha lived 2,600 years ago and was not a god. He was an ordinary person, a prince. His name was Siddhartha Gautama, whose profound insights inspired Buddhism. There are 4 noble truths that Buddha teaches. Dukkha, D-U-K-K-H-A, which means there is suffering in the world. Duh. Yes, there is suffering in the world. As a Christian, I look at suffering as the results of sin in creation, in the Garden of Eden. The Buddhist looks at it as life is nothing but suffering. The first noble truth, suffering exists. Samudaya, S-A-M-U-D-A-Y-A, is that there is a cause of suffering. 1, there's suffering. 2, there is a cause for suffering. 3 is nirodha, N-I-R-O-D-H-A, and it says to us there will be an end of suffering. So let's review the top 3. There is suffering, there is a cause for suffering, and suffering will end. And number 4, Magga, M-A-G-G-A, is that if you live the 8-fold path, then you will be delivered out of suffering. Suffering is caused, this is important, suffering is caused by desire. Desire for money, desire for position, desire for sexual activity, desire for all of that. Desire is in no context in Buddhism a good thing. Desire causes suffering. We're trying to get rid of suffering. The way to do that is through the 8-fold way to live your life. How to live Dharma. The 4 noble truths. Also, karma. You may have heard that number, and we say, what comes around goes around, or whatever, and the Buddhists don't really mean it that way. Karma is the belief that every action, good or bad, will influence a person's future status. In other words, a Buddhist will believe, I'm going to try to be as good as I can so I can be a really good person in the next life. There is a life cycle after life cycle after life cycle. And of course, we call that a belief of reincarnation. I'll be something better next time. And if I'm not, it's because of my karma. I didn't live life right. By the way, the cycle of life is called samara, S-A-M-A-R-A. The cycle from death to rebirth, from birth to death. It's that cycle, and Buddhism wants to break that cycle by achieving nirvana or nirvana. I didn't even say that right. So nirvana is the cessation of suffering. If you receive nirvana, it may be like what we would call achieving heaven, and you break the cycle of birth and death and rebirth and all of that. But the thing about Buddhism is if you become enlightened, achieve nirvana and all that, nobody knows about it because you're gone. And you can't tell us about it. Dharma. If you're asked what Dharma means, D-H-A-R-M-A, Dharma means the teachings of Buddha. It's his writings. Of course, I think he was not really literate. So these are oral things passed down, and Years later, they are put into writing way, way after the death of Buddha. Siddhartha Gautama, I say his name a lot in this lesson because you need to know who he was and what he was doing. He believed that many Hindus will be the incarnation of one of their gods because they had some revelation, but they didn't have the complete revelation. Now, I'm going to close with this because there are several video tutorials that are going to take you through Buddhism. One of them is the lighthearted view of Buddhism. The other is the history of Buddhism, and it's very detailed, and I think you'll gain a lot of information there. But let's review how you can achieve nirvana, how you can be enlightened. It's by following the Eightfold Way. It's called the Eightfold Path, and it is a middle way to live your life. Are you ready? Number one, you need to have the right view of life. A right attitude, a right spirit. Not evil, not base, not greedy, all of that, a lot of avarice. No, you need to have a right view. Number two, you need to have a right resolve to follow the right karma, to live your beliefs, dharma, to be a good person. Number two, right resolve. Have a commitment to your walk in the Eightfold Path. Number three, right speech. No blankety blank blanks in Buddhism. No evil talk, no gossiping, and all of the things that we really enjoy. No, I hope not. Okay, number three, right speech. Number four, right conduct or right behavior. Live your life morally. Live your right by the laws of God. Live your life. Now, we're talking about Buddhism here, so keep in mind, time doesn't mean much, and nobody's looking for the second coming of Buddha. They're looking for nirvana and to achieve enlightenment and become a god themselves. Number five, right livelihood. Okay, don't be organized crime. Don't be a thief. Don't be a politician and cheat everybody and lie to everybody. Live a right livelihood that is honorable. Number six, make a right effort. Is your heart not in being a good person? That's part of the Eightfold Path. Right effort. Put your heart into it. You should believe in what you're doing as a Buddhist. To give offerings unto, to put vegetables and fruit around the statues of Buddha. Okay, number seven, right mindfulness. Be concerned about others. Have a good attitude about the lifestyle and the needs and the responsibilities of other people. Be responsible and help and be a good citizen, if you will. And eight, right samadhi. S-A-M-A-D-I-H-I. S-M-A-D-H-I. Right samadhi, or the eighth step to the Eightfold Path is enlightenment. You will have achieved nirvana. Poof, you are gone. Okay, there's a lot to learn about Buddhism this week. There are two lessons. Looking at both of them, be sure to submit quiz 2. And I look forward to talking with you again on week 3. God bless you all. If you're behind, catch up. If you need my help, let me know. We're looking at Buddhism and all of that, what that means in week 2. Hey, God bless you all. See you next time.